Today, we really want to just encourage you and bless you in your own marriage. And so we have Tim and Emily Loerke with us. Tim and Emily have been at Watermark for about 10 years now. They've been married for 7 years. Tim is a physician assistant in town. Emily serves on our children's ministry staff here at Watermark. And they do an amazing job of pursuing one another intentionally. One of the most important things you can do in your own marriage is to build the friendship to be intentional with one another. And Tim and Emily have just done a great job of doing that together. And so you're going to hear from them of how they pursue one another in a way that we think is going to help your own marriage as you lead other couples. Tim and Emily, it's great to have you guys with us. I'd love for you to just tell us what led you to the point of having to take some time and be intentional and pursue one another.
Yeah, our questions came initially out of a time where we were not connecting with each other well. We just kept missing each other on a week-to-week basis, and so we thought that we need to have something in place to where we can come together and find out what's going on and how to better love one another. Our first question that we ask is, how did you best feel loved in this past week? For instance, recently, there's a hailstorm, and I was up at the hospital, and I knew that my car was getting pummeled by hail, and so Emily called me up and said, would it bless you if I came and just looked at your car, because I know you can't break away. And so she came up at around 8 o'clock at night and found my car in the parking garage, which was out on top, and looked and assessed the hail damage. And so I knew she was probably up there in her pajamas, so that really blessed me.
How do you know that?
It's after 8 o'clock, so I know that you're typically in your pajamas.
That is fair. Tim and I joke that we kind of have emotional or love language whiplash. And so it's not always going to be acts of service, or it's not going to always be quality time, but doing these weekly questions help us kind of eliminate any confusion.
It's great. So every week just intentionally saying, how did you feel best loved this past week?
Yeah. Our second question is, what does your week look like? And we kind of call this like our lighthouse question. This just helps us identify like the dangers of our schedules. We literally just start from that Sunday evening and just work our way through until the next Sunday. And so we'll figure out any meetings that he may have, any lunch dates that I may have, community group events, or ways that we might end up loving on other couples. And so we just don't have any surprises. And we also know kind of how to best encourage each other by asking that question as well.
So number 3 is, how can I best love you this week? We ask that specifically after question number 2 because we get an idea of what's coming up, and so she might have a little bit more specific ways in how she best feel loved in that week, but it just changes from week to week.
We just look at these as suggestions. They're not expectations. So if he doesn't do those things, I don't have any sort of freedom to hang that over his head. It's just a suggestion on how I feel loved.
All right, so number 4 is my favorite on the list. Why don't you guys share what number 4 is on your list of weekly questions?
Yeah, it's how would you best feel pursued in intimacy this week? And so for females, that often changes from week to week. The same way that I pursued her on our honeymoon night may not be how she would like to be pursued 7 years later. And so that's definitely a question more for me, to where I'm like, all right, how can I check in to see how the tides have changed? Now, for my answer, typically it's yes. Pursue me. I don't really care how, but for hers it might be a little bit different.
That's good. Now, when you say just on the intimacy side, that doesn't just mean sex. What does that mean in terms of romance? Do you communicate about that as well?
Yeah, when we ask the question like, how would you feel best loved this week, I always tell Tim, when I say, hey, it would bless me if you unloaded the dishwasher, that's complete foreplay to me. And so it leads up to intimacy with him. And so setting each other up well to just love one another is a way that we end up kind of leading into intimacy often. So
it's good.
Yeah.
Guys, make note of that.
Our 5th question is just how can we be praying for each other this week? And so we usually just kind of share a couple of examples. This isn't something that we go on and on about, but it's a great way for me to kind of be made more aware of his insecurities, or maybe his fears, and him of mine. And usually when we're asking our questions, we're on a walk. There's a trail behind our house, and so we'll just spend the last 5-10 minutes of our walk just praying after we share those requests with each other.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks guys for just, really appreciate your leadership and your model for the way that you pursue one another, and then the intentionality of which you do this. Well, we hope that helps you just hearing their 5 questions. There's nothing magical about the questions. In fact, they're really simple questions. It's the process of being intentional every week to pursue one another, to seek to serve one another, to understand how to serve and pray for each other. And so we hope these 5 questions really help you, not only as you lead other couples, but also in your own marriage as husband and wife.